holiday break for Canadians, courtesy the federal government. A 2-month suspension of the GST on items like beer, cake, toys, books, hot prepared foods, and a $250 check for lower and middle income Canadians. Like it? Well, it's just temporary and still has legislative hurdles to pass. CTV's Rachel Aiello is here to break it all down for us, especially the perks. Okay, Rachel.
Sandy, the Prime Minister is promising Canadian consumers a temporary tax break on some essentials and common stocking stuffers heading into the holiday season.
Major affordability announcement. Today, Justin Trudeau revealed Canadians will soon be getting some relief at the cash register.
Everyone had to tighten their belts a little bit, and now we're going to be able to give a tax break for all Canadians.
For 2 months, starting mid-December, the federal government is removing the GST and HST where applicable on restaurant meals as well as on dozens of consumer goods. Among the items where these taxes won't be charged are grocery store snacks, beer and wine, children's clothing, video games, puzzles, toys, and Christmas trees. Trudeau also announced plans to send rebate checks to 18.7 million Canadians who earned $150,000 or less last year.
If you haven't filed a tax return, file your tax return by December 31st. That will make it possible for us to send you that check for $250.
The government says the GST holiday will cost them $1.6 billion and will require legislation. To pass it, the Liberal minority has secured the help of the NDP to break the procedural stalemate in the Commons, but just long enough to get the bill through.
We want to see this relief done as quickly as possible, so we're prepared to pause the privilege motion that's being debated in the House for 1 day.
The Conservatives were quick to characterize the pocketbook pledge as inflationary, but aren't saying if they'll support it.
And today, what we have is a 2-month temporary tax trick.
Cost of living is still a top issue for voters, and pollsters say there could be some political gain here for the Liberals. But because it's time limited, there's also a risk.
I think the pressure will be on them to probably keep this in place, especially if talk of the town here in Ottawa is that we're going to be in an election in the spring.
The consumer tax break is slated to stay in place until mid-February, and the workers' rebate is set to roll out in April, right around the time of the next carbon tax increase. Sandy?
All right, Rachel, thank you. And this is when we look to CTV Chief Political Correspondent Vashi Kapellas for additional insight. Okay, Vashi, the Prime Minister thanked the NDP for getting behind this. How much is this a political and tactical move by the Liberals?
There is no ignoring, Sandy, that there is politics involved in this. I think you can kind of separate the idea, or maybe two things can be true at once, right? That this potentially could feel like a huge break to a wide swath of Canadians. And at the same time, the Liberals are hoping it offers a huge break to them politically. There are two brand new polls out this morning, for example, Sandy, from two different polling firms showing that the Liberals and the NDP are now tied for second place behind the Conservatives, well behind the Conservatives, where they have been for a number of months. How do we know today's move is political? Well, just a number of months ago in May, the Prime Minister was in an interview saying there's no point in handing out checks or giving people money to address the affordability crisis because it will only make things worse. The exact thing that he announced he was doing today. So they're hoping this buoys their political fortunes and certainly gets them back in a room talking with the NDP.
Okay, do we know, though, Vashi, how Ottawa can afford to do this?
Well, it depends, Sandy, on your definition of what they can afford. And certainly various political parties have different definitions of that as well. I think it's important to note that the deficit right now is projected to be $40 billion. The parliamentary budget watchdog recently said that that forecast was too conservative, that likely additional spending and additional debt interest charges means the deficit is even bigger at $47 billion. So then you tack on another $6 billion and you've got a well over the fiscal anchor set out by the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, of, well over $50 billion in deficit spending. That's a big deal. How they're going to pay for it is a different story, and we don't have the full answer to that yet. Sandy?
Okay, as always, Vashi, thank you.